Hello, and welcome to Dealing with the Monstrous Menace of Email. In this presentation, you will learn some facts about email use and storage at the University of Illinois, why email management is important, and how to administer your email more skillfully. This presentation was developed by the Records and Information Management Services Office. The RIMS office provides a cohesive approach to the management of records and information throughout the University of Illinois, across colleges, departments, and campuses. The RIMS office can help with records retention and purging requirements, streamlining work processes, scanning guidance, drafting policies, procedures, and guidelines pertaining to records, establishing approved digital repositories, training related to records and information management, record storage solutions, and email management, which is our topic for today. Let's begin by answering the question, just how monstrous is our email? Enterprise-wide, the University of Illinois is currently storing more than 40 terabytes of email data alone, which consists of more than 500 million messages. In fact, there are university employees that have been identified as having more than 2 million messages in their mailbox. The over-retention of email can be problematic and result in slower searches for email messages with more false positives, increased storage costs, and greater time and expense in fulfilling search request obligations. We will look at each of these issues in turn. The more email that is retained means the more messages to be searched before the desired message can be located. Even the advanced searches available in most email software will run more slowly if presented with a large enough number of messages to search. In addition, more messages are likely to appear in the search results, requiring more time and effort to locate the desired message. Each month, the equivalent of one full 8-hour day of work per employee is spent searching for email messages. Many messages are kept because data storage is cheap, and you never have to find another filing cabinet or room to store an email in. Just spin up another server. While electronic information storage costs are low in comparison to years past, they are not negligible. For every inexpensive server started up to help store email messages, there are many ongoing costs to consider, including the time spent by IT staff maintaining these servers and the costs of keeping the server running, backed up, and secure. While these costs are not immense, they should not be casually ignored. The Illinois Freedom of Information Act states that all persons are entitled to full and complete information regarding the affairs of government and the official acts and policies of public employees. As a state agency, the University of Illinois is open to public inquiry via the Freedom of Information Act and must respond in a timely manner to requests for information in support of litigation or audits. Each of these inquiries may result in the affected offices needing to produce a multitude of documents consisting of hundreds of pages and/or gigabytes of data. In a study published in the Minnesota Journal of Law, Science, and Technology, it was found that e-discovery costs typically range anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 per gigabyte of data reviewed. In an article published by the RAND Corporation, authors Pace and Zakaras conducted an extensive analysis and concluded that the total costs per gigabyte reviewed were generally around $18,000. How does this impact the University of Illinois? Taking into account FOIA requests alone, between January and December of 2013, the University of Illinois received 621 requests for information, was required to review over 77,000 pages of records to satisfy these requests, and delivered over 69,000 pages to the requesting parties. A great deal of effort and a large number of staff hours were spent to satisfy these FOIA requests. By reducing the number of messages in mailboxes that no longer have a business value, we can provide a faster, more relevant response with less effort and review required. We now look at which email messages are open to public inquiry. Using this graph, you can see that all messages in university email systems are conceivably open to FOIA requests. Therefore, the fewer messages you retain, the less burdensome it would be to satisfy any future FOIA requests. So how do you begin disposing of email? The first step in disposing of email is to determine which messages need to be kept and which can be freely deleted. There are three primary categories of message to consider. 1. Transitory messages, which can be disposed of at will. 2. Messages kept for purposes of reference, which may also be disposed of at will. And lastly, 3. Messages that are records. Transitory messages are messages that do not document the business of the university. They are messages that contain information only of short-term value. Transitory messages include personal or private messages, marketing or promotional materials, and messages from listservs or other general distribution lists. Reference messages are email messages that have a perceived value for reference, either as evidence of a conversation or that contain information that your department might find useful at a later date. Received or sent email messages that document the development of policies, procedures, or general guidelines, or that provide documentation of business transactions, are considered records. Some records may have archival value, and if so, must be retained indefinitely. Others may have legal, regulatory, or business value, and must be retained for a specific period of time. Transitory and reference email combined make up approximately 95% of the messages in most employees' mailboxes, leaving only 5% which should be considered records. If there are records in your email, there are 2 steps that the RIMS office recommend that you take. First, confirm that the message or document in question is the authoritative copy of the record. Many records are sent out to multiple recipients, and most times only one office should be considered the office of record, which will retain the authoritative copy of that record. It is well worth the effort to determine which office is the office of record, so the multiple offices do not hold on to the document or message assuming theirs is the authoritative copy. Once the authoritative copy has been identified, all other copies become convenience copies. Convenience copies can be freely disposed of, but only if the authoritative copy has been identified and the office of record documented. Second, any authoritative copies of records found in email should be stored in an approved system, typically outside of the email system. Approved systems can include shared drive spaces, SharePoint spaces, other vended products, or a myriad of possible solutions. The fundamental element to having an approved system is to document the workflow so that you can prove due diligence and good records management practices. The RIMS office strongly recommends that you speak with us before adopting any vended solution. Software alone will not automatically qualify as an approved system. Documenting the process used to control your records is the most substantial step towards having an approved system. There are various reasons why you should store records in a system outside of email, including concerns of security, accessibility, and over-retention. While the university email systems are reliable, they are not intended as record storage systems. Email is also less accessible to groups than shared workspaces, and records may become entirely inaccessible when the email account holder is unavailable. Lastly, records stored outside of email systems can be kept alongside associated documents in a shared workspace, allowing them to be purged after their minimum retention has been met, rather than potentially lingering indefinitely in the email system. Email attachments are not by default records or non-records. The content of the attachment and whether it is the authoritative copy of a document will determine if an attachment is a record or not. Quite often, the attachment is simply a copy of the original document. If an attachment is a record, it should be moved out of the email system and stored with other related records in a shared space. If an attachment is not a record, then the email message it was attached to can likely be considered a non-record as well, and both can be deleted at will when their usefulness has ended. Content is what matters. Records found in email are not a category of record. Email messages and any attachments that are determined to be records must then be assigned a retention period based on the type of information they contain. A contract, a job promotion, and an application to graduate school may all be records that could be attached to an email message, but each record type will have its own defined retention period. These retention periods can be identified with the assistance of the RIMS office. Now we will look at how to apply what we have covered and start using email like a champion. Before copying people on messages, consider if they need to be included. If messages are never sent, they cannot be over-retained by the recipient or unnecessarily processed through FOIA requests. Whenever possible, link to documents rather than attach them to messages. Attached files are more prone to security issues, and attached files also bloat inboxes unnecessarily. Sharing a document by using a link also helps with document collaboration and versioning to ensure everyone is working with the latest revisions. While your current mailbox may appear daunting, even taking a day-forward approach with how you manage and retain email will be an improvement over believing the situation is too big to handle and doing nothing. Leave the past in the past and apply better email habits starting today. If you need support on how to best use your email, whether it's creating folders, establishing rules to automatically sort and store your messages, or changing how you view your messages, training on using and managing email is available through sites in Urbana, ACCC in Chicago, and ITS in Springfield, as well as lynda.com. As this presentation draws to a close, we would like you to remember the following. Email can indeed be a monstrous menace when messages are retained for too long. Over-retention causes slower searches and increased storage costs, and in addition, responding to e-discovery and FOIA requests can be very costly and time-consuming. Lastly, don't forget that email typically consists of 95% non-record messages, and that non-record material can and should be deleted as soon as is reasonable. And any records that are identified in an email system should be moved into an approved record system alongside other related records. Thank you for taking the time to review this presentation. We hope it was helpful and thought-provoking. For more information about records management at the University of Illinois, visit go.uillinois.edu/RIMS, or to contact the RIMS office, email us at rimsgroup@uillinois.edu.